The Soft One Nexus station was the biggest trading hub in the known galaxy. Every day, thousands of ships came and went. Every species in the universe passed through its long metal corridors. There were insect creatures with hard shells that clicked when they walked. There were reptile warriors with scales thick enough to stop bullets. There were hunters with feathers and claws, merchants made of living crystal, and assassins who could blend into shadows. Every predator species showed their danger openly. They had claws. They had fangs. They had armor built into their bodies. They had bright colors that warned others to stay away. This was how nature worked across the galaxy. Dangerous creatures looked dangerous. Then Kim Yuna walked through the main gate. She was small. She stood only 5 feet tall. She wore a simple gray jumpsuit with no armor plates, no weapons on her belt, no protective gear of any kind. Her skin was soft and smooth. Her nails were short and blunt. Her teeth were flat and hidden behind her lips. She had no claws, no scales, no poison glands, no threat display of any kind. She walked through the crowded marketplace like she was taking a morning walk in a park. Her footsteps were quiet on the metal floor. Her body was relaxed. Her face was calm. She looked around at the alien merchants and warriors with simple curiosity. Like a tourist visiting a new city. And every predator in the station stopped moving. A group of wreck hunters were the first to notice her. The wreck were 8-legged creatures from a planet where everything tried to kill everything else. They had survived by becoming the most efficient killers on their world. Their bodies were covered in hard black armor. Their mouths were filled with teeth designed to tear through metal. They had hunted and eaten species across 100 worlds. When Yuna walked past them, all 6 wreck turned to watch her. Their many eyes tracked her movement with an intensity they usually saved for dangerous rivals. 2 of them took a step backward without realizing they had moved. Near a weapon stall, a Korath warrior stopped mid-conversation. The Korath were massive reptiles who had conquered 12 star systems through pure military strength. This particular warrior stood 8 feet tall and weighed as much as a small vehicle. He had killed hundreds of enemies in battle. He feared nothing in the known galaxy. But when the small human female walked past his stall, he found himself stepping aside to let her pass. He did not know why he did this. His body moved before his mind could think about it. Yuna smiled politely at him and continued walking. Up on the observation deck, Station Security Officer Thax watched the scene with growing confusion. Thax belonged to a species called the Valorians. They had 4 eyes, blue skin, and a natural talent for reading body language. His job was to watch for threats and trouble in the marketplace. He had been doing this job for 30 cycles. He had seen every kind of danger the galaxy could produce. He had never seen anything like this. "What is that creature?" his partner asked. Her name was Krill, and her mandibles were clicking nervously. This was a sign of deep unease in her species. TAS pulled up the registration data on his screen. According to the station records, that is a human female. Her name is Kim Yuna. Species origin is a planet called Earth. He paused, reading more. Her species is classified as having prey analog physiology. "That cannot be correct," Krill said. "The classification is clear. Humans have no natural weapons, no armor, no venom, slow reflexes compared to most predator species. They are classified as prey." "Then explain what I am seeing." Thax looked back at the marketplace. The small human was now standing at a fruit vendor's stall. The vendor was a Krexian, a species known for aggressive business practices. Krexians often intimidated their customers into paying unfair prices. This particular vendor had been reported many times for threatening behavior. As Thax watched, the Krexian vendor practically threw his merchandise at the human female. He refused to accept payment. He was sweating from glands that Crexians only used when they were truly afraid. Yuna took the fruit with a polite nod and walked away. She did nothing, Krill observed. She said nothing threatening. She made no aggressive moves. I know. Then why is every predator in this station treating her like she is dangerous? Dax did not have an answer. He could only watch as the small, soft, unarmored human continued through the marketplace. Everywhere she went, crowds parted. Predators who had never backed down from anything found reasons to be somewhere else. Warriors who had faced death 100 times suddenly remembered urgent appointments in other sections of the station. Yuna found an empty table at a small cafe near the observation windows. She sat down, ordered a drink, and began reading something on a small tablet. She looked completely relaxed. She looked like she belonged there. A group of Keth mercenaries were sitting at a nearby table. The Keth were professional killers. They worked for the highest bidder, and they never failed a contract. They had weapons built into their very bones. One by one, the Keth mercenaries finished their drinks and left. They did not look at the human. They did not explain why they were leaving. They simply went. Yuna did not seem to notice. She sipped her drink and continued reading Dot in his observation post. Dax made a decision. He opened a secure channel to the station's intelligence division. I need a full background check on a human arrival, he said. Name, Kim Yuna, Earth origin. I want to know everything about her species. Everything. Is there a problem, Officer Thax? Thax watched the small human sitting alone in the cafe. Around her, in a perfect circle, every table was now empty. Predators who had faced armies without flinching were avoiding her like she carried a deadly disease. I do not know, he admitted, but I intend to find out. He ended the transmission and continued watching. The human finished her drink, left some credits on the table, and stood up. She stretched her arms like she had all the time in the universe. Then she walked toward the lower levels of the station, toward the dark places where criminals and killers made their homes, toward the sections that even security officers avoided. She walked like she was going home, and somewhere deep in Thax's mind, in a place older than logic or reason, a small voice whispered a warning. It told him that the classification was wrong. It told him that this soft, slow, weaponless creature was somehow the most dangerous thing to walk through his station in 30 cycles. He did not understand the feeling, but he trusted it. He began following her signal on his screens, and he did not stop watching for the rest of the night. The gathering dark word traveled fast through the dark places of Nexus Station. Within 2 cycles, every criminal, smuggler, and killer on the station knew about the human. A female, alone, no weapons, no backup. Asking questions about missing cargo ships in the outer reached Dot in a private room behind a gambling den. 3 of the most powerful crime lords on the station held an emergency meeting. These were not small criminals. These were beings who controlled entire networks of illegal trade. They had armies of soldiers. They had enough money to buy politicians and judges. They had killed anyone who stood in their way. The first was Vorn, a Korath smuggler. He was massive, even by his species standards, with dark green scales and a face covered in old battle scars. He had started as a simple pirate and worked his way up by being smarter and more violent than anyone else. The second was Malix, a Vrek information broker. She had 8 legs and 8 eyes, and she used all of them to watch everything that happened on the station. Nothing moved in Nexus without Malix knowing about it. She sold information to the highest bidder, and she never forgot a face. The third was Whisper, a Shadari assassin. The Shadari were strange creatures who existed partly in normal space and partly in some other dimension. They could move through shadows. They could make people feel fear so strong that their hearts stopped. Whisper had killed over 300 targets in her career. She had never been caught. These three controlled most of the illegal activity on Nexus Station. They had worked together for years. They had faced threats from rival gangs, from governments, from military forces. They had survived everything done. Now they were meeting to discuss one small human female. "She's just an investigator," Vorn growled. His voice was deep and rough. "A soft species. Slow reflexes. I could crush her skull with one hand." "Then why have you not done it?" Malix asked. Her 8 eyes focused on him. "You have known about her for 2 cycles. She walks past your operations every day. Yet she still breathes." Vorn did not answer immediately. He looked down at his massive clawed hands. He did not want to admit that something about the human made him uncomfortable. "I have been watching her," Malix continued. "I have been watching very carefully. She does not behave like prey. She does not startle when she should. She does not show fear when she walks through dangerous areas. When I performed a full threat display at maximum intensity, she simply looked at me. And?" Vorn asked. "And nothing. She looked at me like I was mildly interesting. Then she smiled and continued walking." Malix's legs shifted nervously. "I have used that display on warriors from a dozen species. All of them showed some reaction. Fear, aggression, something. She showed nothing." Whisper had been silent until now. She sat in the darkest corner of the room, barely visible. When she spoke, her voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I tried to stalk her 2 nights ago. Standard hunting protocol. I followed her through the lower decks, staying 40 meters behind, moving through the shadows where no light could reach. And?" Vorn asked again. She turned and looked directly at me. "Through 2 walls. She could not possibly have seen me or heard me, but she knew exactly where I was." Whisper paused. She waved at me. She smiled. Then she continued walking. Silence filled the room. The 3 crime lords looked at each other. None of them wanted to admit what they were feeling. "What do we actually know about humans?" Vorn finally asked the Mall IX, pulled out a data device, and projected information into the center of the table. Images and text floated in the air. She had spent the last 2 cycles gathering every piece of information she could find about the human species. "Humans come from a planet called Earth," she began. "The Galactic Survey has classified Earth as a Class 4 death world." Vorn leaned forward. Class 4 was serious. Most intelligent species evolved on Class 1 or Class 2 worlds, where conditions were stable and safe. Class 3 worlds were dangerous. Class 4 worlds were considered barely survivable. "Everything on their planet tries to kill them," Malix continued. "Predators, weather, disease, natural disasters. The planet has extreme temperature variations, violent storms, and unstable geology. 70% of the surface is covered in a chemical that is poisonous to most species. How did they survive?" Whisper asked. "They adapted. They are pursuit predators. They do not attack like normal hunters. They follow their prey for hours, for days, until the prey collapses from exhaustion. They can walk longer than almost any species in the galaxy." More images appeared. Humans hunting. Humans fighting. Humans building. They have no natural weapons. So they make weapons from everything. Rocks, sticks, metal. Eventually, they learn to split atoms and make weapons that could destroy entire cities. Malix's voice was becoming less steady. "They consume poison for recreation. They drink ethanol, which is a cleaning fluid. They eat capsaicin, which is a chemical designed to cause pain. They do this for fun." Vorn stared at the images. He saw humans swimming in the chemical water that covered their planet. He saw them climbing mountains of ice. He saw them keeping predators as pets. They form emotional bonds with creatures that can kill them, Malix continued. They take wolves and make them into loyal companions. They live with felines that have claws designed for killing. These animals love them. These animals would die for them. This is impossible, Vorn said. But his voice was not as confident as before. The humans conquered their death world. They reached the top of their food chain, not through strength or speed or natural weapons, but through intelligence and persistence and sheer stubborn refusal to die. Malix shut off the projection. And then they went to space. Whisper spoke from the shadows. The human female is here alone. She arrived on a standard transport. She has no backup that we can detect. What kind of species sends a single unarmored female to a station full of predators? A stupid one, Vorn suggested. No, a confident one. Whisperer leaned forward, and for a moment, her face was visible. Even she looked worried. They sent her alone because they expect her to succeed. They sent her without weapons because they do not believe she needs them. They sent her into the dark places of this station because they think she is the most dangerous thing in those dark places. Vorn looked at the door. Somewhere out there, the small human was still walking, still asking questions, getting closer to their operations every day. So what do we do? He asked. Maul IX and Whisper exchanged a look. None of them had a good answer. We watch, Malix finally said. We gather more information. We find her weakness. And if she has no weakness? Nobody answered. The three most powerful criminals on Nexus Station sat in silence, and for the first time in their careers, they were genuinely afraid. Outside the gambling den, in a quiet corridor 3 levels up, Una sat on a bench and ate one of the fruits she had been given. She was reading through files on her tablet. Files about missing ships. Files about stolen cargo. Files about 3 criminals who thought they were invisible. She was not invisible. But she was patient. And patient hunters always won in the end. She finished her fruit, put away her tablet, and continued her walk through the station. Somewhere behind her, she knew the predators were watching. Let them watch. Let them worry. Let them make mistakes. She had all the time in the world. The hunt begins. Una had known she was being watched since she first stepped off the transport ship. She would have been surprised if she was not being watched. That was the whole point of coming here. On Earth, she had been a normal person with a normal job. She worked for the United Nations Stellar Affairs Division as an intelligence analyst. Her specialty was pattern recognition. She looked at information, found connections, and predicted what people would do next. Some people in her organization had fancy words for what she did. They called it behavioral analysis and predictive modeling. She just thought of it as paying attention. Humans were good at paying attention. They had been doing it for millions of years. This was the secret that most alien species did not understand about humans. Other species had evolved in one direction. They became faster or stronger or more armored. They developed one survival strategy and perfected it. Humans had evolved in every direction at once. On Earth, humans had been both prey and predator. They had been hunted by things with bigger teeth and sharper claws. They had hunted things that were faster and stronger than them. They had survived ice ages and heat waves and plagues and disasters. Every generation, the ones who paid the most attention were the ones who lived long enough to have children. The result was a species that was always watching, always thinking, always aware of everything around them. Una sat in a small cafe near the station's observation deck. Through the window, she could see the stars and the distant lights of arriving ships. In the reflection on the glass, she could see the 3 aliens who were pretending not to follow her. They were not very good at it. One was a Korath, probably working for the smuggler named Vorn. He was sitting 4 tables away, pretending to read a menu. He had been pretending to read the same menu for 30 minutes. Another was a small wreck, one of Malex's information gatherers. The wreck was hiding behind a decorative plant near the door. Every few minutes, one of her 8 eyes would peek around the leaves. The third was harder to see. It was a Shadari, one of the shadow-walking assassins. Yuna could not see it directly, but she could feel it. There was a spot near the back of the cafe that felt wrong. The shadows there were too deep. The air was too cold. Yuna sipped her drink, which tasted almost like the coffee she loved on Earth. She was not worried about her watchers. She wanted them there. She wanted them to report back to their masters. She wanted the crime lords to know that she was not hiding. Her tablet made a soft sound. A message had arrived from her handler back on Earth. His name was Park Junho, and he was one of the few people in the organization who understood how she worked. The message was short. "You have stirred up the nest. Be careful." She smiled and typed back. "That is the point." The mission was simple in its goal, but difficult in its execution. Over the past year, cargo ships carrying humanitarian supplies had been disappearing in the outer reach. Medicine, food, technology, equipment that could save lives on struggling colony worlds. 23 ships had vanished. The supplies never reached their destinations. People were dying because of this. Children were dying. The official investigation had found nothing. The pirates and smugglers who operated in the outer reach were too good at covering their tracks. They had paid off local officials. They had destroyed evidence. They had killed witnesses. So the organization had sent Yuna. She did not have weapons or soldiers. She had something better. She had patience, and she could see patterns that others missed. Over the past 3 cycles, she had gathered information. She had talked to dock workers and maintenance crews. She had watched shipping schedules and trade routes. She had noticed which businesses had suddenly become more wealthy. She had tracked the small details that criminals always overlooked. The pattern was clear now. The ships were being captured in a specific region of space. The cargo was being brought to Nexus Station. It was being repackaged and sold through legitimate-looking businesses. The money was being split between 3 criminal organizations, all of which were run by the 3 crime lords who were now so worried about her. Vorn handled the capture and transport. Malex managed the information and made sure no evidence survived. Whisper eliminated anyone who asked too many questions. It was a good system. It had worked for a year without anyone catching on, but they had made one mistake. They had started to believe they were invisible. They had stopped being careful. They had left patterns. And Kim Yuna saw patterns the way fish saw water, constantly, naturally, without any effort at all. She finished her drink and left the exact right amount of credits on the table. She stood up and stretched, moving slowly and calmly. She gave no sign that she knew she was being watched. Then she started walking toward the lower levels of the station. The lower levels were where the criminals lived. The lights were dim. The corridors were narrow. Security patrols rarely came down here. It was the kind of place where people disappeared. Her watchers followed at a distance. They probably thought they were clever. They probably thought she had no idea they were there. Yuna walked deeper into the darkness. Her footsteps echoed softly on the metal floor. She passed closed doors and suspicious-looking aliens who stared at her with hungry eyes. She did not speed up or slow down. She did not show any fear. This was another thing that aliens did not understand about humans. Fear was not the opposite of bravery. Every human felt fear. The difference was that humans could feel fear and keep moving anyway. Millions of years of evolution had taught humans that running away was not always the answer. Sometimes the thing chasing you was faster. Sometimes hiding would not work. Sometimes the only way to survive was to turn around and face the danger. So humans had developed the ability to override their fear. They could be terrified and still think clearly. They could be shaking with terror and still make good decisions. They could walk into the darkness knowing that something was waiting there, and they could do it anyway. This was what made humans so frightening to predator species. Predators expected prey to run. They expected prey to freeze. They did not expect prey to look them in the eye and keep coming. Una reached a junction where 4 corridors met. She stopped and looked around. The shadows here were very deep. She could feel the Shadari assassin nearby, closer now than before. "I know you are there," she said quietly. "You can come out if you want." "I do not bite." A figure emerged from the shadows. It was Whisper herself, not just one of her servants. The Shadari assassin was tall and thin, with skin that seemed to shift between visible and invisible. Her eyes were completely black. "You should not be down here," Whisper said. "Humans die in places like this." "Some humans," Una agreed. "Not all. You are alone. You have no weapons. You have no protection." Una smiled. It was a small, calm smile, the kind of smile that showed no fear at all. "I have everything I need." Whisper studied her for a long moment. The assassin was trying to read her, trying to find the weakness that all prey creatures had. But there was nothing to find. "What do you want here?" Whisper finally asked. "I want to help people. The supplies you have been stealing, they were meant for colonies that are struggling to survive. Children are sick because they do not have medicine. Families are hungry because they do not have food." Una's voice was still calm, but there was something harder underneath it now. "I am going to stop you. I am going to find the stolen cargo. I am going to make sure it reaches the people who need it. And if we try to stop you, you can try." Whisper was silent for a long moment. Then she stepped back into the shadows and disappeared. Una continued walking. She had made her point. She had let them know that she was not afraid. Now the real hunt could begin. Behind her, in the darkness, Whisper watched her go. The assassin had faced many dangerous enemies in her career. She had killed warriors and soldiers and other assassins, but something about this small, soft, unarmed human made her want to run. She reported back to the others. And for the first time, all 3 crime lords began to seriously consider what they would do if the human could not be stopped. The breaking .5 station cycles had passed since Una's meeting with Whisper in the lower corridors. In that time, the crime lord's carefully built operation had started to fall apart. It began with small things. A shipment that was supposed to arrive at a hidden warehouse was redirected to a different dock, where station security happened to be waiting. A coded message between Vorn and one of his captains was somehow intercepted and decoded. A secret meeting between Malix's information brokers was interrupted when the room's privacy shields mysteriously failed. Each problem, by itself, was small, but they kept happening. Every day, something went wrong. Every day, the humans seemed to know exactly where to look and what to do. She had not fired a single shot. She had not threatened anyone directly. She had simply appeared in places she should not know about. She had asked questions that made people nervous. She had smiled politely and waited. The worst part was the waiting. Predator species were designed for fast action. They saw prey. They attacked. They won or lost quickly. They were not built for long hunts. They were not built for patience. Humans were. Una moved through the station like water. She was everywhere and nowhere. She talked to dock workers and maintenance crews, always friendly, always curious. She visited bars and cafes, listening more than she spoke. She walked through the lower levels at all hours, never hurrying, never showing fear. And everywhere she went, things started going wrong for the crime lords. Vorn's soldiers began to desert. Not all at once, but one by one. They would finish a shift and simply not come back. When Vorn tried to find them, they had already left the station on outgoing transports. "They are afraid," Vorn growled at an emergency meeting. "My warriors, who have faced armies, are running away from one small female. Can you blame them?" Malix asked. A normally steady voice had a slight shake in it now. "My information network is compromised. Contacts I have had for years are refusing to speak with me. They say the human might be watching." "She cannot watch everything," Vorn insisted. "Can she not?" She knew about the meeting at the Blue Star warehouse. She knew about the shipment on Dock 7. She knew about the backdoor codes to our communication network. Malix's 8 legs tapped nervously on the floor. She should not know any of these things. Yet she knows all of them. Whisper was silent in her corner. She had tried to follow the human 3 more times since their meeting in the corridor. Each time, the human had looked directly at her hiding spot and waved. Once the human had left a small wrapped package in a place where Whisper was going to hide. Inside the package was a sweet pastry from the cafe on level 3, a gift. From prey to predator, it was the most terrifying thing Whisper had ever experienced. "We should kill her," Vorn said. "Enough games. I will do it myself." "Then do it?" Malix challenged. "Don't know. She is in the marketplace. I can see her on my monitors. Kill her and end this." Vorn stood up. His massive body filled the room. His claws extended, gleaming and sharp. He was a warrior who had killed hundreds of enemies. He had nothing to fear from a small, soft human. He walked to the door. He stopped. He stood there for a long moment, his hand on the door release. His muscles were tense. His breathing was heavy. He did not open the door. "I will go later," he said quietly, "when the timing is better." Nobody said anything. Nobody needed to. They all understood. 3 cycles later, Vorn found the human in his private quarters. He had been very careful coming home. He had used 3 different routes and changed his path 4 times. He had bypassed his own security systems to enter through a secret entrance that only he knew about. She was sitting in his favorite chair, reading something on a small tablet. She was drinking something that smelled like the tea from the Earth shop on level 5. "Good evening," she said without looking up. "I hope you do not mind. Your security codes were interesting to study." Vorn drew his plasma cutter. It was a weapon designed to cut through starship hulls. He had used it to kill enemies in power battle armor. Yuna did not flinch. She did not even look at the weapon. "The shipments," she said, still reading her tablet. "Where are they being held?" "You are in my territory. In my home. You are alone and unarmed." Vorn's voice was rough with anger and something that might have been fear. "I could kill you right now. You could try." She finally looked up. Her eyes were calm and steady. There was no fear in them, no anger, just patient certainty. "But you will not," she continued, "because part of you already knows how this ends. The old part of your brain, the survival part that kept your ancestors alive, is screaming at you right now. It is telling you that I am dangerous. It is telling you to run. I fear nothing. Everybody fears something." Yuna set down her tablet and stood up. She was so small compared to him. The top of her head barely reached his chest. His claws could rip her in half with one swipe. Yet somehow, the room felt smaller now that she was standing. "Your species evolved on a safe world," she said. "You had clear predators and clear prey. Everything made sense. You learned to judge danger by size and claws and teeth." She took a step closer. Vorn did not move, but his grip on the plasma cutter tightened. "My species evolved on Earth. Nothing was safe there. Nothing made sense. The small things could kill you as easily as the big things. Poison and disease and accidents killed as many as predators did. The weather could kill you. The water could kill you. The food could kill you. Another step. She was within arm's reach now, within killing distance. So we learn to be dangerous in ways that do not show. We learn to use our minds as weapons. We learn to be patient. We learn to never, ever give up. Bourne looked into her eyes. They were soft brown, an unremarkable color, but there was something behind them, something old, something that had survived ice ages and plagues and extinctions, something that had crawled out of the darkness of a death world and conquered everything in its path. Every human you have ever met is a survivor, Una said softly. Every single one of us comes from an unbroken line of ancestors who refused to die. We carry that inheritance in our blood. We carry it in our bones. We carry it in our minds. She reached out and gently pushed his plasma cutter aside. He let her do it. He could not say why. You stole supplies that were meant to help people, she said. Children died because of you. Families suffered because of you. And you thought no one would come for justice. Her voice hardened. You were wrong. What do you want? Bourne whispered. The location of the stolen cargo. The names of your contacts. Everything. She picked up her tablet again. You are going to tell me all of it. Not because I am threatening you with violence, but because you know, deep in your survival instincts, that I am the most dangerous thing in this room. Bourne looked at the plasma cutter in his hand. He could still use it. He was still stronger, faster, better armed. But she was right. His instincts were screaming at him. Every ancient warning system in his body was telling him that this small, soft human was a predator beyond anything he had ever faced. He put the weapon down. Station coordinates, he said quietly. And he began to tell her everything. Outside, hidden in the shadows, Whisper watched through a security feed. She saw Vorn, the most feared smuggler in the Outer Reach, surrender to an armed human. She did not wait to see what happened next. She ran. Some prey, she realized, were not prey at all. Some prey were simply predators who had not revealed themselves yet. And humans, she understood now, were the most patient predators in the galaxy. The return the rescue operation was clean and fast. Once Una had the coordinates, she transmitted them to a United Nations enforcement fleet that had been waiting 2 systems away. Within 6 hours, they had recovered all 23 stolen cargo shipments. Medicine, food, technology, everything. More importantly, they have found the hostages. Crew members from the captured ships who had been kept alive as potential slaves or ransom opportunities. 47 people who had been missing for months, presumed dead by their families. They were going home now. On Nexus Station, the crime lord's empire collapsed overnight. Vorm was arrested before he could escape. Malix's entire information network was exposed and shut down. Whisper had fled the station, but enforcement agents were already tracking her across 3 systems. It was over, but that was not what the galaxy remembered. What the galaxy remembered was the security footage that somehow leaked from Nexus Station. Someone had edited together clips from different cameras, creating a complete record of Una's time on the station. The footage showed a single, human female walking through corridors filled with the most dangerous predators in known space. She wore no armor. She carried no weapons. She moved slowly and calmly, like she was taking a pleasant stroll. And everywhere she went, predators stepped aside. Wreck hunters who had conquered death worlds gave her space. Korath warriors who had never retreated from battle moved out of her path. Shadari assassins who could kill with a thought watched her from the shadows and did not attack. The footage spread across the galactic network faster than any official announcement. Within a week, it had been viewed by billions of beings on thousands of worlds. Everyone wanted to see the impossible thing. The soft, small, unarmed human who had walked into a den of monsters and walked out victorious. On Nexus Station, Security Officer Thax watched the footage for what must have been the 100th time. He was sitting in his small apartment, drinking something strong to calm his nerves. The experience had changed something in him. He was not sure if the change was good or bad. "I still do not understand it," he said. His friend Kira sat across from him. She was a xenobiologist, a scientist who studied alien species. She had come to the station specifically to interview Thax about what he had witnessed. "What is there to understand?" she asked. The human completed her mission successfully. The criminals were arrested. The hostages were rescued. "No, not that. I understand that." Thax gestured at the screen where the footage was still playing. "I do not understand why everyone was so afraid of her. By every measure we used to evaluate threats, she was harmless. Soft body, slow movement. No weapons. No venom. Nothing." Kira leaned back in her chair. "Tell me, Thax, when you watched her walk through the station, what did you feel?" Thax was quiet for a moment. He did not want to admit it. "I felt like I should run. Like I was in the presence of something dangerous. But when I tried to understand why, I could not explain it." "That is because you were not using logic. You were using instinct." Kira pulled out a data tablet and began showing him images. Every predator species in the galaxy evolved to recognize danger. We have to. Missing a threat can mean death. So we developed subconscious systems that detect warning signs, even when we cannot consciously identify them. But what warning signs does a human display? All of them. Kira changed the image to show a detailed scan of human biology. Humans do not have one survival strategy. They have all of them. Their eyes are forward-facing, like predators. Their bodies are designed for long-distance pursuit. They are omnivores who can eat almost anything. They can regulate their body temperature in conditions that would kill most species. They heal from injuries that would be fatal to others. She changed the image again. They form hunting groups with complex social structures. They use tools and weapons. They modify their environment instead of adapting to it. They domesticate other predator species and make them into allies. So they are predators? They are something more complex than that. They are persistence hunters who evolved on a death world. They survived by being too stubborn to die. They walk differently than prey species. They make eye contact like predators. They show no submission behavior. They do not react to threat displays the way prey should. Thax thought about the human female walking through his station. She had not flinched when warriors growled at her. She had not backed down when assassins challenged her. She had smiled. "Your instincts were telling you something true," Kira continued. "They were telling you that this creature did not fit into normal categories. It looked like prey, but behaved like a predator. It was small but showed no fear. It was alone but acted like it was the most dangerous thing in the room. And that made everyone afraid? Predators do not like things they cannot categorize, things they cannot understand. The human female was a puzzle that could not be solved. And the longer everyone watched her, the more they realized that she was not acting confident. She was confident. She truly believed that she was in control." Kira paused. "In my experience, that kind of confidence is rarely wrong." On Earth, in a small apartment in a city called Seoul, Kim Yuna finished her official report and sent it to headquarters. The mission was complete. The stolen supplies would reach the colonies. The hostages would return to their families. Justice had been served. She made herself a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the rain fall on the city below. Her cat, a small gray creature named Cloud, jumped onto her lap and began purring. Yuna scratched the cat behind its ears. This was another thing that aliens found strange about humans. They kept predators as pets. They formed bonds with creatures that had claws and fangs and hunting instincts. Cloud had been with Yuna for 8 years. The cat was completely loyal. She would attack anyone who tried to harm her human. She would starve before eating food that was meant for Yuna. She loved her human with a devotion that most aliens could not understand. This was the human's secret weapon. Not technology or intelligence or persistence, though all of those mattered. The real secret was love. Humans formed bonds. They made families. They cared about each other with an intensity that other species found terrifying. They would cross the galaxy to rescue strangers. They would fight impossible battles for people they had never met. They would walk into stations full of monsters just because someone somewhere needed help. Yuna thought about the hostages she had helped rescue. 47 people. 47 families who would be whole again. 47 stories that would not end in tragedy. It was worth it. It was always worth it. Her tablet made a soft sound. A new message from headquarters. She did not read it immediately. She knew what it would say. Another mission. Another place where someone needed help. Another walk through darkness. She was not special. She was just another human. Just another survivor of the death world called Earth. Just another member of a species that refused to give up. But that was enough. That had always been enough. She finished her tea, gave Cloud one last scratch, and reached for her tablet. Time to go back to work. Somewhere in the galaxy, in the dark spaces between stars, other predators were watching the footage from Nexus Station. They were learning something important. Humans were soft. Humans were slow. Humans were alone in the vast darkness of space. But humans did not stop coming. They did not give up. They did not accept defeat. And when they walked into a room full of monsters, the monsters got out of the way. That was the truth that the galaxy was beginning to understand. That was the reason every predator had stepped aside for the small, unarmed human female. They had recognized on some level deeper than thought that she was not prey. She was a human. And that meant she was the most dangerous thing in any room she entered. The story of Kim Yuna spread across the stars. It became a legend that parents told their children. It became a warning that criminals whispered to each other. It became a truth that everyone knew, but few could explain. If you saw a human walking toward you, and they did not look afraid, you should run, because humans only walked that calmly when they already knew they were going to win. And humans, the galaxy was learning, almost always won, not because they were the strongest, or the fastest, or the most dangerous in any obvious way, but because they never, ever stopped. And in the end, that was the only thing that really mattered.